You know that my bar bills, I still have some of the bar bills from those ships. My bar bills for wine and drinks were higher than my rent was. They used to charge you. There's nothing else to do on a ship other than drink. That's the big secret of why people go on. Well, you see, in those days, ships were a little different than they are today. Today, they're floating Las Vegas hotels. What they are is like a Motel 6 with propellers today. You can't even walk on a ship and enjoy the air without some kind of muzak driving you indoors so that you gamble or buy some garbage that you could buy in Target for less money, for example. But in the days that I began traveling on ships, I traveled on some of the last great ships, the Oriana. In fact, I just found some artifacts from the Canberra, the Oriana. These were amazing ocean liners that were used for actual transport as opposed to being simply a floating brothel. I'll be right back.
Savage. With Michael Savage, I can relate to him.
The Savage Nation. Weekday afternoons 3 to 7. Talk 910 KNEW.
There's a great article that Matt Towery wrote for Creative Syndicate. True Savage released while Savage Talk host banned. Good article because it's about me, number one, of course. If I'm not for myself, who will be, as you well know, wouldn't be Becca Rush. But if I'm only for me, what am I? I mean, then I'll just be a savage. So therefore, I must say it's a great article. You've got to read it on michaelsavage.com. And I was thinking about something. Because I'm putting together my archives, I'm serious. I have a question. Pardon me for leaving the news for a moment. But this is a talk show, and since it's a talk show, we talk about things other than the news, even though the news is very important, and things of that nature. But we talk about other things, particularly if you're a great conversationalist, as I am, and being a Renaissance man as I am, I can talk about most everything with some degree of knowledge. Is there anyone listening to this show who is not an executor, but an appraiser of literary estates? Let me put it to you that way. I've written 25 books, right? So I have manuscripts, cartons, mementos. Then I have 15 years of tapes, radio tapes. They have to be worth a fortune because once I get this all put together and insured, I'm probably going to either sell it off or build a library and then donate all the money to charity. I have some idea of what this is worth, and I'm not going to throw the number out, but I want a genuine appraiser to call the show. I don't know how they do these things. I mean, they say that, let's say, Jack Kerouac's estate is worth $20 to $25 million. Now, he was a really great writer, and it contained his first manuscript for On the Road with a teletype roll and all of that. And then the family's fighting over the estate and blah, blah, blah. How do you determine what something is worth? I have millions of listeners, and I have several million readers of my books, so therefore there's a value. It's a matter of what the value is, and I don't know how you come to these terms. Or I'll just build a library. I have an idea for that. And the centerpiece will be the 1965 Cadillac, which right now has its fuel tank removed because apparently something broke in it. And the center thing will be the 65 Caddy with American flags on it when the chrome was thick and the women was straight. And then around it will be all sorts of artifacts and such from the Savage years. Sort of different than the Kennedy legacy, wouldn't you say?
Savage. Michael Savage. Afternoons 3 to 7 on Talk 910 KNEW and online at 910KNEW.com.
Coming up next, from San Fran Freak Show, The Savage Nation, from Talk 910 KNEW.
Imagine discovering an opportunity that can completely rebuild your retirement fund by 40% over the next 2 years. Does it sound too good to be true? It's not if you take action today. Call my good friends, and I mean good friends, at Swiss America. Gold IRAs have averaged 20% per year growth since 2001. It's just common sense to roll over dead paper assets into gold, the best performing asset of the century. Then you can relax no matter what happens on Wall Street. Call now for a complete Gold 101 DVD and my free CD.
Call toll-free 888-867-8965. That's 888-867-8965.
For nearly a decade, I've told you to trust gold coins and Swiss America. Today, it's more urgent than ever. Get my CD, DVD, and new special report.
Call toll-free 888-867-8965. That's 888-867-8965.
Learn before you earn. Don't just imagine rebuilding your wealth. yourself. Do it now.
Call 888-867-8965 today.
They're funny, they're entertaining, and I couldn't drive an hour without them.
Armstrong and Getty. Weekday morning 6 to 10. Talk 910 KNEW.
Warning. The Michael Savage Show contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Here is Michael Savage.
Joe en Paul, let's go to park eten, brabberilla Joe en Paul, dat weet je bully kriegen, brabberilla zoet, a koud, a gieten zolle perfect, a feten daft hier, kuifen, naar bij Joe en Paul.
Now, the reason I played that first one of Joe and Paul in a Yiddish ad is because the word Ubermensch was used today by a historian of some repute who I've never heard of, Doug Brinkley, who referred to Ted Kennedy as a form of Ubermensch. And, of course, if you hear the word Ubermensch, you immediately think of Untermensch. And if you know what an Untermensch is, why, then immediately you think of Joe and Paul for some reason. At least that's how my mind works. I don't know about yours. I don't know how in the world they can call Ted Kennedy an Ubermensch without understanding that it means someone else who is not an Ubermensch is an Untermensch. And then, of course, then you have moved into the lexicon of old Adolf. How could a great liberal historian such as Doug Brinkley, who I've never heard of, refer to Ted Kennedy as a form of Ubermensch? Did you hear this? Listen to this. Play it.
The fact of having dogs with him and playing catch all the time and going to see Ted Kennedy always felt like you were going to see a kind of Ubermensch. He was so nice to young people.
And, of course, okay, we got it. Ubermensch. And, of course, the talk show host from MSNBC, who was a nobody, snickered at that. That sounded good. The word Ubermensch made him happy because it sounded smart and somehow sophisticated. And while he himself doesn't know what the word means, he knows that anyone as esteemed as Doug Brinkley, whoever he may be, is much smarter than him, and therefore it's certainly worthy of a snicker, which is what they all do on MSNBC. They snicker a lot, all except for Pat Buchanan, who never snickered. He just stepped on people's arches in grade school. So here we are. What would you like to talk about? Play the Philip Morris thing for me. I'm not in the mood to do politics right now. I think I'll do nostalgia. I think I figured out why I've been banned in Britain. It may not actually be statements that they said I made, which I didn't make. It could be because I wrote psychological nudity. And in psychological nudity, there are stories that could be offensive to the Obermensch of Britain, the liberals of Britain. For example, there is the story of the tough high school geometry teacher with two fingers on his right hand, who was a tough guy, and he was an Irishman. And there may be a reason that the British banned me that is related to this story, for all I know. And then, of course, I wrote about happy and sad cufflinks that I had as a child. And that could be offensive to a liberal government when you think about it. Because if you put children on Prozac, they're neither happy nor sad. They're flatlined all the time so they can be easily manipulated by Gordon Brown. And so, therefore, if I write a story called Happy and Sad Cufflinks, and I remind people that we actually have emotions once we throw our drugs away, that's a threat to a liberal nation, and that could be a reason I was banned in Britain. And so I'm looking through the stories now, and I think I'm going to next purge some of these stories in an attempt to be taken off the list, banned in Britain. Here's another one. When my dog Tippy died and was thrown into a garbage truck on page 21. Now, that's offensive to a liberal. And I think that may be the reason I'm banned in Britain. What if I read that in England? What if I'd gone on a book tour in England and read Tippy dies and is thrown into a garbage truck? That could be a shock to the British today. Dead man's pants. There you go again. Making a mockery of using clothing from dead people. And somehow that's offensive to the dead. So that has to go out of the story. Here's another one. Nutty friend had crazy mother. You can't call anyone's mother crazy. even though she beat herself on the hands and wrists with a chain and then told her his father that he did it in order to make the father fight the son. That could be offensive to a liberal government. Now, there's one-armed Frank. Now, look at that story on page 43 of Psychological Nudity. That could be the reason I was banned in Britain by the liberal government. Look at that story, one-armed Frank. You can't say a thing like that in England today. You may offend people with one arm. You have to pretend that there are no people with one arms, particularly those who came back from Afghanistan and Iraq, who lost their arms for no reason whatsoever. Then this one must have been. This could be the one. Half man, half woman in Long Beach. That unto itself could be the reason that I was banned in Britain. And you never know. And then there's, of course, well, there are other stories in there that you may not want to read anymore. Because, well, there's another one. The Islamists are winning. There you go. There's a reason for banning me from England. Islamists are winning. Here's another one. Plastic bags are banned in San Francisco, but not condoms. Now, that's a threat to the social order in a liberal government. That's another reason to ban the book. So I would suggest that you, if you have a copy of this, I don't know, maybe you should bury it in your backyard with your guns. Because once they come for the Second Amendment, once they win on that, they'll come for the First Amendment.